Hi, Bailey. It's so nice to see you. Us on behalf of Easter Seals, we're so excited to interview you for this registered behavioral technician position. Before we start, do you have any questions about anything?
I don't have any questions right now, but I did want to ask if it would be okay if I took some notes as we go through the interview.
Of course, 100% fine. So, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. My first question for you is, do you have any previous experience working with children on the autism spectrum?
Yes, I actually have tons of experience, both personal and professional, with working with kids on the autism spectrum. My older sister is 25 years old and she was diagnosed with autism at a very young age. So I bring a lot of personal experience growing up with her to the table. And I've also worked as a camp counselor at United Cerebral Palsy in Felton, Delaware, as a summer camp counselor with kids with various disabilities, not just autism. And I also served as a direct support professional at the Benedictine School in the group home setting with young kids and people as old as 65 years old with autism.
Right. So, of course, that answers my second question. If there are no family members who sparked this passion, but of course, it's your older sister. So, can you explain to me what it was like working in those group homes and seeing the conditions that those children had to live in?
So, since I bring a lot of personal experience to the table, it was interesting to see the various levels of autism. Like
Mhm.
some people are more aggressive, some people are nonverbal. So, working in the group home, that opened my eyes to the various ways that autism comes through in people. Not just, there isn't just one form of autism, there's so many different ways that it can be developed in kids.
Right. So like you said, how some children are nonverbal. So language development is a very big responsibility for an RBT. So how do you plan on implementing this into the classroom without it being difficult for the children to understand?
So I always will strive to make learning as naturalistic as possible because I take a very natural approach. I don't like when kids are forced to sit down and do task after task after task. I like implementing programs into their play just so that they don't pair me with high demands.
Mhm.
So when it comes to language development, I will, if the student is nonverbal, I will have them use their AAC device or picture exchange communication system to request things or label things, and use receptive language to increase their development. And that can come in the form of tacting and simply following directions. If they don't have adequate language development, like if they're just starting with PECS or an AAC device, I will meet them where they are at and help them grow from there.
So, of course, by the way, you talk about being a registered behavior technician. It's completely obvious that you already are. So, when did you obtain your RBT credential?
So I actually became an RBT in May of 2022. So I sat for the board exam the first week of May and passed. So prior to the exam, I just held the title as a behavior technician. And then once I
Mhm.
sat for the exam and passed, then right then I became an RBT. So about 6 months.
So, follow-up question to that. Do you think that it would be beneficial for young college students who are also, because you're a psych major, correct?
Yes.
So, do you think it would be beneficial for other young psychology majors to obtain their RBT credential, or did you think it was a little bit too challenging?
No, I think at least for the company that helped me obtain my RBT credential, I think it is very beneficial, especially while I am also simultaneously continuing my psych degree. I think being an RBT is super beneficial because I'm able to see all of the theories that we learn about in class be implemented into daily work life, which also makes my college life a little easier because I have a lot of personal experience, which helps me to better understand the curriculum that I'm learning. So I would fully suggest any psych major to look into becoming an RBT. And even if they don't have the time to work a full-time job, The RBT online course that's required is only 40 hours and it's completely free and it's self-paced. So even just simply going through that course and learning what they have to say, I think is also super beneficial, even if they don't go further to become an RBT.
I love that. I love that. So, like you were saying, with your work life and school life balance, do you think training for the course fully prepared you for the field?
Um, since I do, yet again, will say that I bring a lot of personal experience to the table. So going through the training, it was almost like a light bulb moment. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I experience that every day. It was more of like putting a label to what I already know and
Mhm,
putting a scientific definition to it. So I think that the online course validated everything that I already knew,
mhm,
but I think I learned the most through the personal experiences and shadowing an RBT and listening to a BCBA talk.
mhm. So, like you, well, similar to you, my nephew, he's actually special needs and he suffers with a small pituitary gland. So, I also understand, that this is a very emotionally taxing job. So, what precautions are you planning on taking outside of the workplace to ensure that you'll be ready to give these children the comforting environment they need?
So, like you said, working in this field is very emotionally taxing, and the burnout rate is so high, which is why companies really do struggle to hire RBTs. And even if they do get them, it's extremely difficult to keep them in the position because individuals just can't mentally handle it because it is so much and the day-to-day job changes every single day. So going into work, you truly never know what to expect. So to ensure that I'm able to give my clients all of me and continue to put forth the effort in helping them grow, I will be sure to take part in self-care and spending time with family and putting work life aside when it is time to clock out and tuning into me and myself and what I need so that I can continue to do my job day in and day out.
Right. So, of course, the parents of these children, they don't get the luxury that we have to clock in and clock out. So, what recommendations will you make for the parents of these children who kind of don't grasp the concepts that you're teaching them?
So as an RBT, I'm implementing ABA, obviously. So I'm working under a BCBA. And in order for ABA to work, parents have to put in the effort during parent training, which is required through insurance.
Mhm.
So BCBAs will go into the homes or meet with families on Zoom to do parent training. So if what I'm implementing the parents are not quite understanding, then I will encourage them to speak more with my BCBA or ask them to schedule a meeting with her so that they can explain things more in depth. Or if there's something that they really want to learn more about and see in action, I will be flexible and change what I had planned for the day with the client and focus more on showing the parent what they have concerns about and how they can implement different things to change behaviors or reinforce things in a different way just so they have a better understanding.
Right. So, of course, in our job, we're required to collect data based on the children in our care. So, how do you plan on presenting this to parents who are new to this, RBT scenario and, they might have other children that aren't autistic? How do you plan on showing them, this is what their child needs to work on?
So I think the best way to collect data is through graphs,
Hmm.
because if you were to look at a data collection sheet every single day, a parent would think that it looks like Spanish, like they're going to have no idea what an SD is or a target behavior. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So after a session, I always graph my data in Excel and I have a graph, like a visual graph, so they can see the frequencies changing. So if they ever have a question about data or what things look like or how their child is doing in regards to certain behaviors, I can always pull up the graphs on my iPad on Excel just to show them the progression or regression of certain behaviors in a visual format that's easier to understand than just reading words on a paper.
Mhm. So I think we only have time for about one more question, but I think this should take up enough of it. So, like you said, your older sister, of course, you have a passion for it because of her. But if you plan on losing passion for being an RBT, what's the next step, and how do you think working here will give you the skill set for what comes next?
So, although I don't ever plan to lose a passion for being an RBT, I know that the burnout rate is super high. So, if I ever feel as though I need a break from the field, my
Mhm.
next step would be to pursue a master's in special education so that I can continue to work with the same population, but more in an academic classroom setting, and always know that I can fall back on RBT and maybe add an ABA certificate so that I can be a BCBA assistant. So getting that special education master's will allow me to take the route of school, but always fall back onto ABA. And if I were to be hired for this
Mhm.
position, working with this company will allow me to gain adequate skills and knowledge pertaining to ABA and working with children on the autism spectrum disorder, and move forward in my career and further my knowledge and add to what I already know with by working with various clients.
Thank you. I loved this entire thing. It was very insightful, and I loved speaking with you. So I'm going to relay this stuff back to our HR team, and of course, we're going to look over this. But if it's between you and me, I think you have a really good shot.
I appreciate you talking with me.
Of course, thank you. That was
Okay.
actually really good because
I
I'm not
know.
gonna lie, I heard you talk about being an RBT a couple of times, so I kind of got interested. So that's why I asked you that one question. I just wanted to know.
Oh God, it was interesting.
Okay. So I think you have to stop the recording if that's how it goes.
Yes.